start over here as well. Okay, hi! I'm so excited about today. This is actually one of my family favorites, and the kids have been begging me to make it again, and I figured as long as I'm making it again, might as well make it for you guys. So, Margaret, hello, welcome, welcome. All right, the camera controls up, get the comments up, and go ahead if you are on and let me know where you're watching from today and what you guys are making for dinner maybe, because this is my dinner. I'm super excited about it too. And sorry, I do not have all the comments going right now. Give me a second. I was helping my daughter. It is her 18th birthday next week, and we were designing her cake, and I got a little bit too involved in working on her cake, and all of a sudden I'm like, crap, time to go live. So just trying to find that so I can catch up. So today we're making deep fried mac and cheese bites, which is a great finger food and really, really fun and easy to make. All right, I almost have all the comments up. Okay, Margaret is watching from Texas, and she's making tacos and nachos, Taco Tuesday. Do you do tacos every Tuesday, Margaret, or just is today like random and awesome? Okay, view on, watch page, okay. Facebook comments are up, just waiting for YouTube comments to be up so I can make sure I'm responding to everybody. Nope, pause that. Okay. I am not seeing the YouTube ones yet, but hopefully we will catch up. So I will just get started. So the first thing that we're going to do is actually start the macaroni. I have the water boiling already. So just gonna add, and that's, my assistant did not put enough water in here, so I'm gonna have to start. I'm gonna have to add a lot more water and bring it back up to a boil. Because the water's like down here and I need it to be like way up here because I'm making 2 pounds of macaroni. Anyway, so we're going to start by making the macaroni and cheese. Now I have done multiple videos on macaroni and cheese before, so we're going to go kind of fast, but I thought it would still be better to make the macaroni and cheese live and answer any questions people might have than it would be to skip it and have it all pre-made. So we're going to make homemade macaroni and cheese again. It's going to go super quick because it is so dang easy. All right, so we're going to start with our pan and some butter and cook that over medium heat. Now in the recipe that is down below, I don't add shallots or garlic for the mac and cheese bites just because I wanted to keep it really simple. But I am going to add shallots and garlic today because my family really, really likes them. So that is what we are doing. And this was just a couple heads, a couple cloves of garlic and 1 shallot. I'm just going to get those cooking while the butter melts. There is something just so wonderful about the smell of garlic and shallots to me. It's just always a favorite. So, but the garlic and shallots are totally optional. They don't really affect the mac and cheese. They're just flavoring, right? Nancy, you love these. Awesome. I do too. Yoli made ground beef and rice and beans burrito. That sounds delicious. Jennifer, hello from South Carolina and Pittsburgh. Robert, your wife is making chicken tacos. Taco Tuesday for dinner. Sounds delicious. Okay, so I have flour And because we're adding cheese to this, cornstarch. If you're just doing a roux and bechamel sauce that you're not adding cheese to, you do not have to use cornstarch, but cornstarch helps keep cheese sauces nice and smooth and not stringy. So I recommend sticking with the cornstarch if you're going to be adding any cheese at all to whatever it is that you're making with this thickener. Now remember, because I added shallots and garlic, it is always going to look a little on the chunky side. It's not going to be that beautiful smooth roux that you'll be seeing if you're not using chunky shallots and garlics, because usually you want that flour and cornstarch and butter to get nice and smooth. So the first time I made this, I was like, why won't it smooth out? It took me a second to remember, duh, Ashlee, you have all of these little chunky bits in here. Of course it's not going to be perfectly smooth. I felt like a dork when I was like, oh yeah, that's why. And the earlier you add the liquid to your roux, the better the thickener agent aspect of it is. The longer you cook your roux, it's going to get darker and darker and darker, and the nuttier flavor that you're going to add to whatever dish you're making, but also the less of a thickener it will be the longer it cooks. So usually for mac and cheese, I just look for like a light tan color is what we're going for. So just a little bit longer. Jennifer, why does the roux why does your roux get too thick? It shouldn't be getting too thick. Are you using equal parts flour and equal parts oil or butter? The only time mine is less liquidy and more thick is when I don't have enough fat, or when I have too many other things, like if I'm making a roux with like onions and green peppers as part of the base as well, so a lot of chunky stuff. But I would just add a little bit more butter or oil or whatever it is that you're doing to that. Jennifer, hello from Portland. Oh, I grew up in Portland. I miss it. Home sweet home for me. Okay, so this is beautiful texture and color. So we're going to add our milk. And some heavy cream. Now I always use whole milk, and I always use heavy whipping cream, not normal. So for me, the more fat, the better. And we just want to stir this until it all is incorporated and it starts to just bubble simmer. This will take just a bit of time. In the meantime, I'm going to check on our boiling water. Usually I like to add the noodles to the boiling water right as I'm starting my sauce, and they're usually finished around the same time. So, all right, not quite boiling again, so but it won't be too much longer. So I'm going to give this, keep stirring this. Whoop. And the camera angle is not changing. All right, nothing's working. There we go. I think my touch screen is slowly but surely dying on my computer where I control all my cameras from. So just make sure that you've scraped the bottom so there's none of that roux left that could like cook on to the bottom of this. Now you can make this with any cheese that you want. I have 4 different cheeses that I'm using today. I use vintage extra sharp white cheddar. I have some gruyere. I have some Monterey Jack, and I have some Beecher's cheddar as well that I got from Costco last time I was there. So excited to try this mixture, but I kind of change it up to whatever I have in the fridge. So again, don't be worried. Oh, oh my word. My kids are always saying that I can always stir without spilling, and today I am proving that totally wrong. Oh, sounds like we are getting some boiling going on from the water. Let's give it a check. Oh, yep, it is. So I'm going to add my 2 pounds of mac and cheese to my water and give it a stir. And put the timer on. and come back and check how this is doing. Hello from West Virginia. Hi, nice to see you. What's the best cheese to use? Honestly, Robert, whatever cheese you like best. I stick with, I don't go with like super soft cheeses. Like I don't use mozzarella ever, or fetas. You can even throw in some Parmesan though, some harder cheeses if you want, but I like to stick with kind of that mid-range cheese. So I use a lot of cheddars, and then I throw in just a couple of other cheeses that are fun for kicks. I really like to play around with it. If I go to the store, like I was just at Tillamook over spring break, we were in Oregon, and I picked up some really fun, unique cheeses that they had from like specialty batches and stuff like that, and I'm really looking forward to using those in some mac and cheeses. So this is getting a little thicker. It's not quite there yet. But it's thicker than it was for sure. You do want to make sure that you're stirring this occasionally, just so that all this dairy doesn't burn to or scald the bottom of your pan, right? Like that would be bad. So just kind of keep an eye on it. Give it a couple stirs here and there, but you don't have to just stand here and stir constantly. But it does go fairly quickly depending on your temperature, so also don't walk away too much. Check on my, woo, that is back to a boil. Now, does anybody have the perfect method for boiling pasta? I used to have a great method for boiling pasta that I just loved, and then it kind of quit working on me. I don't know why, but I'm going to tell you what it is. So, bring your water to a boil, add your pasta, bring it back to a boil it for about 2 minutes, then put the lid on and turn it off. And let it just sit in that warm water. So we're gonna give that a shot again today. Okay, this is really thickening up beautifully. Let's check it out. So you can see already how much thicker it is than it was. And we're getting some minor bubbles, which is perfect. So I'm going to add our seasonings now, everything but the salt. So I'm going to add some white pepper, and this is how I do it. I eyeball it, and it's different every single time. And I'm going to add a little mustard and a dash of nutmeg. I was surprised as I was researching mac and cheese a couple years ago that mustard and nutmeg are actually very typical spices for mac and cheese. Sometimes I'll also throw in like some cayenne pepper. I really like that. And sometimes I'll use like some liquid smoke in here as well. But look how beautiful this is already. Now the reason you add all of your spices except for salt is that cheese all has its own salt, and kind of depending on the level of your cheese saltiness, you might want more or less cheese. So whew, I'm going to turn this way down now and pull out the whisk and start adding the cheese little by little and stirring again and letting it melt. And then just keep adding the cheese until you have added it all. If we add it all at once, it gets harder to stir in. And if you add it, it's also, the sauce is really, really hot, which tends to cause problems with cheese too. So that's why we're adding just a little bit. I've turned the temperature down, and this is going to start cooling. And as it cools, it's actually going to get even thicker. So it's going to be beautiful. Once your cheese is melted, add a little bit more. And just keep doing that. Now, usually I do a little less sauce for 2 pounds of mac and cheese, but I'm making extra sauce because I like to have some of the cheese sauce for dipping the mac and cheese bites. So if you have made my mac and cheese before and you're looking at this recipe going, wait, it's different, that's why I'm making extra sauce for us to use for dipping. Oh man, this smells amazing. And look at the stringiness of the cheese just melting away. That looks so good. Okay, and just keep adding. And I just put all the cheese together, and I always use freshly grated cheese. The reason for that is I feel like pre-shredded cheese at the grocery store, while it's convenient, I feel like it doesn't melt as smoothly, and it kind of has a weird taste from the coating that they put on it so that it doesn't get stuck together at the store. And I feel like the flavor is actually not as strong. So maybe it's in my mind, maybe I'm going crazy, I don't know, but that's my personal preference. So I like to freshly grate all my own cheese for mac and cheese. And it really doesn't take that long, but I also have an attachment for my mixer that shreds my cheese for me. So it's really easy and really, really, really fast. Mike says that putting a wooden spoon over the pot stops the water from boiling over. I've heard that trick. I've tried that trick, and honestly, it boils over. So I don't know, maybe it's the wood, maybe it doesn't like bamboo, but this trick has not worked for me in the past. So I don't know, must be doing something wrong. Now notice all the cheeses that I'm using are white. I just tend to stick with white cheeses, but you do not have to. You can totally use a classic cheddar cheese to get that classic yellow for mac and cheese. It's just a personal preference. I like the Tillamook cheddar a lot, but I like their extra sharp cheddar better, and the extra sharp tends to come in white. So that's all. It's not like I'm going for white on purpose. It's just how it kind of ends up. Okay, once you have all of your cheese melted in, we're going to taste it and see about adding that salt that we're looking for. Oh man, this is just perfect. Getting a nice cheese pull, everything's melting so beautifully. Okay, so get my spoon out. And let's give this a taste. Okay, so I'm gonna add probably a teaspoon of salt, mix it in, and try it again, see what I think. Because I tend to be a little salt heavy, so it just kind of depends on your audience. And when I try to be less salty, my kids always complain. They add their own salt. So I have raised salty loving children, and I'm a salt lover. So again, that's another reason why in recipes, even though I know it can be annoying to read a recipe that says salt to taste, because you're like, what does that even mean? Everybody has such different levels. My girlfriend Jill, who lives about 5 minutes away, she thinks I salt everything way too much. So anyway, it's all about personal preference. I'm gonna say another half teaspoon, and this should be perfect. Okay. And again, I've turned this temperature way, way, way down because I don't want to continue to have this simmer on me and end up losing a lot of the liquid, and then it turns too thick, and then it gets harder to like mix in with the macaroni. So you want to make sure you're not doing that. Oh. Alright, so the cheese, you can see now it's smoother than it was before. There's not quite as much cheese pull in here. Oh, and the pasta is done. Okay, I'm going to taste test this one last time. Perfect! Tastes amazing. Alright, so now I'm going to check on my pasta and see how that's going. Always want to pull one out. Okay, so whenever I'm making big, huge amounts like this is 2 pounds of pasta. Okay, and that is perfect too. So I got this new toy on Amazon about a month ago, and it's a pasta strainer. You add it right to the pot, and then you can strain right from the pot itself, which I love, because then I'm not getting one more huge thing, uber dirty. And then I can also just leave the pasta right in the pot that I'm working in anyway. Because I'm just going to add the cheese sauce right to this. Watch, this will be the time it like pops off when I lose all my pasta. That would be so sad, I would cry. But the good news is I pre-made some mac and cheese, so we will be okay. All right, so put this over here and take our cooktop away. Give us some room to work. Should have held on to that a little longer. Okay. So I'm not going to add all the sauce because like I said, I made extra sauce. This is 1.5 times the amount of sauce I normally make. So I'm going to pour 2/3 of the sauce over the noodles and I'm going to keep the rest for dipping. And I'm just eyeballing it, but if you want, you can measure it out. And what I'm going to do now is stir all this together and then decide from there if I need it to be a little bit saucier or not. Last time I made this, I actually made 1.5 times the sauce and added it all just to see what my kids thought of it being extra saucy, and they loved it. So, oh, check this out. Look how good that looks. That just so creamy, so amazing. Ah, so good. Okay, so I am going to add a little extra sauce just because I like mine extra saucy. And I'm going to set this sauce aside to save for later. So I'm going to put it back on the stove so it's out of the way for now. Move this over, and I'm going to bring in, first off, some extra cheese. So typically this is how I serve it. If I'm making mac and cheese, that's it. We're done. In fact, I'm going to grab another spoon. I'm going to take a bite because I have been working all day and I'm hungry. So good. So this is how I make it for mac and cheese. But for the mac and cheese bites, I want some extra cheese pulliness coming out after I fry it. So I'm going to add some extra cheese and stir that in. Let's bring that back. And I did use yellow cheddar for this. Notice. Just stir that in really quickly. Now, typically I'll let my kids eat about half of this for dinner, and then I freeze the other half for mac and cheese bites. But if you're using it all for mac and cheese bites, this will make 2 9x13 trays. So that is what I'm doing now. So I have this 9x13 tray that I prepared by putting parchment in the bottom of. Now, last time I made the mac and cheese and I froze it and I put it in the 9x13 pan. I forgot to put parchment paper on the bottom first. I had extra mac and cheese. I'm like, oh, this will be perfect. I'll freeze it. It'll be great next time I want to make mac and cheese bites. I just poured it right into the 9x13 pan. And today, when I said, oh, I have all that frozen mac and cheese, it'll be perfect for mac and cheese bites, I went to pull it out to like pre-cut some pieces to be ready for showing you how to make this. Yeah, it didn't want to cut out. I ended up having to let it mostly thaw. Pulling it out, I lost a bunch of mac and cheese from the outside, which makes me super sad, and then refroze it and so I could cut it a little bit easier, but don't do that. Don't do what I did. You want to have this parchment paper in the pan so that later after it's frozen, you can go pop and pop it out of this pan really easily, keeping the mac and cheese as a nice block, so it'll be easier to cut. So we're going to, whew, this is hot. Usually I have a person helping. Usually I make my kids help me with this part. Okay. We want about half of that. Whoop, that might be more than half. We're gonna press it into this pan. Spread it around. And get it nice and even in this pan. And then you want to do the same thing with the other half. And one of the things that I did is I also took more parchment paper and I pressed it on the top, and I just put the other 9x13 pan right on top, and it helps kind of compress it together, which keeps it sticking really, really nicely. So set this aside for now. Now I'm not going to stick it straight into the freezer right this moment, because the glass is actually nice and warm now, and if I stick it straight in the freezer it can actually crack. So I'm going to set it aside and let it cool slightly before I do that. And then then put the other half of the mac and cheese in the freezer, which I'm actually just going to eat some more. Ooh, hot. That was a big bite. That was a really big bite. Whew. That was too big. Oh, I burned my tongue. Yep. That's what happens when you don't eat all day. Okay, clean off my work surface. And I'm gonna pull out the mac and cheese that I previously froze. Okay, so here this is, right out of the freezer. I was going to put it on the trivet, but then I thought, because my countertop is kind of warm now and I don't want my glass pan to break. So as you can see, looking at this, I finally got it out and I put parchment paper in when I put it back in the freezer to help be able to pull it out. So see, now it pulls out nice and easily. And I already cut half of this, but what I did, and you can see the ones that I lost from it being all falling apart. You see, look, it all fell apart up here. But so what I do is I cut 4 rows, so right in the middle, and then again in half, and then this way I cut it in half, and then 2 rows. So this is 6 by 4, but those squares are still fairly large when you do that, right? This is a pretty big bite. If this was going to be your mac and cheese bite, like, that's really big. So then I cut it in half again. So I have these diamonds. Now I found after trying a couple different ways to make mac and cheese bite, I found that this was the easiest. If you would prefer to have balls, my suggestion is cool the macaroni and cheese in the refrigerator, make balls out of it, and then freeze those balls individually on a tray so that you can just grab the frozen ball to do this next part. But honestly, spreading it in the tray and cutting into triangles was way easier than trying to get mac and cheese balls to stay together. So personal preference, I thought this worked out great. The triangles are just as easy to eat finger food wise, and it made way less prep time for me, so I'm a fan. So next thing we're gonna do is prep our toppings. So I have 2 eggs in a wide bowl, and then I have another bowl for our bread topping. So I'm going to crack the eggs. And remember to crack eggs on a flat surface, not on a corner. Oop, I got a shell. Watch out for those pesky shells. And I'm gonna whisk. Now I'm starting with 2 eggs. Kind of depending on how many of these you're making, you'll go through 2 to 6 eggs. But I always just start with 2, and then as it runs down, I'll add another one and beat it in. So, and then for the breadcrumbs, kind of the same thing. I go through anywhere from 2 to 4 cups. So I'm going to add about 2 cups to get started. I'm going to add some pepper, about like half a teaspoon. and some salt, about a teaspoon, and stir that up. Okay, so next what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our egg bite, or our our mac and cheese bite, our frozen mac and cheese bite, and I'm gonna dip it in the egg, and then I'm gonna come over here and dip it in the breadcrumbs. Now, this is great as is to go directly into your fryer, or if you want a really thick crust, you can actually do it again. So I'll do one like this, and then I'll do a double dip one so you guys can see the difference. So for prep, you can do this and then immediately go into your fryer, or you can make a bunch and set them on a plate, and then that will make the frying part go a little faster. So I'm going to do just a couple to get started, and then I'll make more while these are frying. So again, egg, breadcrumbs, and I like to kind of press my breadcrumbs down into it. So then we're going to do this one double thick, just to see what we think. And I did a couple double thick and a couple regular last time I made it, and honestly I liked the double just fine. But the single was easier and faster, and I didn't notice enough of a difference that I thought it was super worth doing. So I'm going to separate those. I'm going to have my regular right here and my double right here, and we'll fry them and see how it goes. I'm going to get a couple more ready to go and add to my fryer. Now I've already preheated the fryer to 320, and then these will fry for about 2 to 2.5 minutes. You want it to get nice and golden, but you also want the inside, the mac and cheese, to completely thaw while it's in the fryer. So if you find that you're getting a beautiful golden color, but your inside is still a little frozen, that means you're cooking them too hot and too fast. So turn the temperature down and fry them for less temperature but more time, and that will allow the temperature to permeate all the way through and cook your mac and cheese bites. So the first couple bites are kind of a test run. So I don't usually fill my fryer my very first run, because I want to test it. I want to make sure that my temperature and timing is looking good. So I'm going to set this over here and wipe down my counter again and bring the fryer over. Because I had breadcrumbs under my fingernails. I don't recommend carrying fryers. I recommend plugging your fryer in where you're going to use it and leave it. But obviously, since I only have one work surface to show you everything, it doesn't really work out too well for me. All right, so I'm going to turn it back on. Okay, burn my hand a little. Cold water. That's gonna blister. Ooh, yeah, that's gonna blister. The things I do to bring you guys good food. Okay, so the fryer situation. So here are our single layered, and here is our double layer. See if we can keep track of those and just do a little test run. Okay, so sizzling nicely. Notice they're not floating. These are actually pretty heavy and pretty dense, but they will eventually float as they get going. So you just want to keep an eye on it to make sure that it's not floating in a way that one side never gets golden, right? Because they're going to want to stay in one direction, So you just kind of want to make sure that you flip it around and hold it for a couple minutes to make sure that every side gets that beautiful golden color. Okay, and in the meantime, while those are frying, I'm gonna put my timer on for a minute 30 because they've been in for about 30 seconds already. And while that's going, I'm going to keep dipping more so that they're ready to go in after this is done. So, any questions that I should catch up on? Would this recipe work well with vegan cheese? I have never tried vegan cheese. If it melts and if it melts smoothly and keeps its flavor, then I don't see why not. I think it would work just fine. But I'm not an expert in anything vegan, so I can't say from experience. I would say try the mac and cheese first. If you can make a good cheese sauce with vegan milk and vegan cheese and vegan butter, then the fried mac and cheese bites will totally work just fine, like easy peasy. So it's just a matter of finding that balance of the butter and flour, dairy, milk, you know, whatever you're using for that, and cheese that's giving you that creamy consistency that you're looking for as a topping. But yes, it should work. You like yours with a crust top, baked, your mac and cheese. Nice. So these are kind of like that, just bite-sized. Stop. You'll be over in 20 minutes. Sounds good. Don't burn your tongue. Jill, hi. That's the friend I was talking about earlier that lives 5 minutes away and thinks I oversalt everything. You're from Washington State, Moses Lake. Very nice. I was born in Vancouver, Washington. You crumble bacon into mine and you make a blue cheese dipping sauce. Dang, Michelle, that sounds amazing. The first time I made these was actually for a sponsored post. And so I put summer sausage in mine. And that turned out really good too. I loved that sausagey flavor. But at the end of the day, my kids just preferred it straight. Okay, so the timer just went off. So, whoop. Come on. Change cameras. There we go. So this side is still a little light, so I'm just going to hold this for a little bit longer. This is the double thick one, and it did not want to keep turning. The other ones actually turned really beautifully, so I was able to keep those baking on each side. So I'm just going to hold this in place for another like 30 seconds or so, just to keep, till we get this side just a little bit more golden. Let's see. Can you pizza bite mac and cheese baked? Yeah, you could easily add like little those super itty bitty small mini pepperonis in here, and then dip this whole thing in like a marinara. In that case, that extra cheddar that I mixed in right at the end after the mac and cheese is finished, in that case, if you were trying to make a pizza version, I would actually stir in I would actually stir in mozzarella in that case, since that's more pizza-like. So once the mac and cheese was done, I would stir in shredded mozzarella and mini pepperoni pieces, and then freeze it, cut it up, do everything, dip it in the egg, dip it in the breadcrumbs, fry it, and then I would serve it with marinara sauce. I might just have to try that now that I'm talking to you about it. Okay, the other side of this is golden, so I'm going to go get my tray. So I have a tray set up already with paper towels on the bottom so that I can pull these out and put those right onto that tray. So pull them out, and look how beautifully dark and golden those are. And this one is still a little light on that one side, but the rest looks great. So I'm going to pull it out too. I'm going to stop that freaking timer, driving me batty. And I'm going to add some more. Be careful not to burn yourself as you do this. Okay, so you can't see, but I'm doing some more dipping of the egg and the breadcrumbs, and toss in the fryer, and the eggs and the breadcrumbs, and toss it in the fryer. And just keep an eye out on these. And then again, I usually put my timer on for about 1.5 minutes. because usually by the time I get the timer turned on, they've already been cooking for a little bit of time, and then that's just a good way I can work on other stuff, and then that timer will remind me to come check on them. They're not always done in that time frame, but it's a good point to start watching and watching for that golden color, or to like I did before, hold some of them upside down if they're like insisted on staying in a certain position and they're not quite ready to come out yet. So in the meantime, we are going to cut these open and check on the difference between the single breadcrumbs and the double breadcrumbs and see what we think. So I'm going to, I'm losing counter space. I'm going to push the fryer over. Oops, just a little bit. Got it unplugged. Don't come unplugged. Widen our frame a little bit. Let's see if we can see more stuff. And I'm going to get a little knife to cut these open. Let's see what we think. Okay, so here's the double and here's the single. There's like no good light because this is taking it all. All right, so. And the double thick one, so here's the single thickness one, and it just ripped right open. We got some nice cheese pull in there. Everything is nice and squishy and warm. But the double thick one is actually still slightly frozen in the center. So I don't know if it's the double thickness or this triangle was just a little bit big. So like I mentioned before, I'm actually going to bring my temperature down a little bit and cook them for a little longer because we do not want frozen centers. I'm going to add some more. Okay, but let's compare the crust now on these two. So this is the double and this is the single. And honestly, the single is perfect for me because for me, it's all about the mac and cheese, and the crust is just holding it together so I can bite it. While the double, that's just a lot of crust for me. But again, personal preference. If you're looking at this going, dang, look at that double thickness breadcrumbs, I want it, then that's the one you should do. Just make sure that you test it first and then cook it longer as you need to. So now comes the part where I am going to reheat that extra sauce that I made a little bit, and I'm just going to put it on low and just reheat it a little bit because it's still fairly warm since we just made it, but I want it just a little bit warmer than this for dipping these bites into. Okay, so that timer went off. I'm going to check this next round of bites, and I can tell as I pick them up just by looking at them that my oil had already cooled down when I moved it over. Probably that unplugging probably stopped it, so these definitely need more time. So I'm going to add a couple more minutes. Oops. Oh, there's a timer right on my thing. Huh, that's not what I was trying to get to though. Okay. Yeah. Yes, I just stuck my finger in the sauce, but I had washed my hands. Not quite warm enough yet. So I'm going to take some more of these and get them ready to dip, and I'm going to answer questions. Elena, does that pasta strainer clip to the pot? Yes, it does. It's awesome. These right here just clip right to the edge of the pot, and then when you pour it over, this silicone just sits right there so the water all goes through. It's awesome. I love it. I will add a link down below if you remind me. With this recipe, press on top. They look really good. Thank you. What brand of fryer do you use and what size? That is a great question. I actually got this from Delonghi, Delonghi. I love it. I used to have a bigger one, like a double-sized fryer, but it was using a lot of oil, and I never, even with a family of 6, I never felt like I needed to fry that much that fast, use a double size. So this one is narrower. It only has one basket, and I love it. I feel like it's just perfect for what I need. I'm not quite sure on the size, but it also has this awesome, I can't show you because I don't want to burn myself again, but in the front, it opens up and there's just a nozzle, and it drains all of the oil out, so it actually makes cleaning a lot easier too. So I really recommend this one, and if you remind me, I will come back later and add a link to this as well. I should hire somebody I know to like add links while I'm doing this. I'm just saying. Okay, so these are, yeah, this oil definitely cooled down a lot when I brought it over, because they've been going for a lot longer and they're a lot lighter. The reason you don't want to go too low in your temperature is because if, let's say this is down to like 280 now, I could get out my thermometer gun and tell you. Yeah, the oil's down to 275 now. So that's gonna take like 3 times as long to fry properly, and that whole time is just getting infested with more oil. So you definitely wanna keep your temperature above the 300 range. I should have, well, again, I had to move it over here so you guys could see it. That first fry, the oil was nice and hot and worked great. I should have checked to make sure that it was still plugged in. I think it got unplugged when I moved it over. But yeah, sometimes you need to double check the oil before you add more, because every time you add items and then take them out, the oil is cooling while it's frying other things. So sometimes you need to give it more time in between to reheat. Usually if you're leaving it in the exact same place, it doesn't need that, but with me moving it over, I think that caused some problems. So that's why this second batch is taking so much longer and is going to be a much oilier batch because of it. So that's fun. Check on the sauce. All right, my sauce is warm. I'm going to scoop some into a bowl, because you can never have too much cheese. So let's do this shot. All right, so extra cheese sauce, the one from the first batch. Oh, so delicious, so good. And now I get to eat it. Tastes amazing. I love that crunch from the outside, from the bread. But when you I'm a person who doesn't like baking her mac and cheese. I like eating my mac and cheese straight because I don't like baking it and drying out the pasta and drying out that sauce. But because these are frozen, when you put them into the fryer, it just brings them back up to temperature without drying it out a ton. So you still get that crunchy aspect, which is awesome. But you still are also getting a lot of sauce. And then by having the extra cheese for dipping, any sauce issues that might be lacking from freezing it and frying it are totally rectified. So good and stringy, and so delicious. Anyway, so that is deep fried mac and cheese bites. Oh good. And this next set is ready to come out and put on the paper. And I'm going to spend the next half hour frying the rest of this pan and then calling my kids up. In the meantime, the question is, am I only going to eat this one, or am I going to eat like 6 more bites before my kids show up? Because once they show up, well, there won't be any left for me. So I'm going to eat my fill before they come. But I can stay around for another minute and answer any questions that you might have. But other than that, that's it. Easy peasy, homemade, deep fried mac and cheese bites. So thanks for watching. Jill, you just need my Amazon login. You got it, girl. Adrian, you want some. Seriously, they're so good and so easy. Holy lactose. I know. Good thing cheese loves me, right? I'm joking because cheese and I have been in a mild fight ever since I lived in Japan for a year. And after living in Japan for a year, I couldn't quite come back to my normal level of cheese tolerance because over there they just don't have cheese. So I went a whole year without eating pretty much any cheese at all. So I've been battling for the last 14 years to get my cheese level back up there. Xavier, definitely going to try for your next meetup. Ever thought of using mac and cheese as a pizza crust? I have not. That sounds amazing. And hello from Chile. Can you add more oil if it's getting low? Yes, but then you're going to have to wait for it to come back up to temperature. Usually that's not a problem though. With these deep fryers, if you're using one of those shorter fryers, then you might have to add more oil. But that's why for this recipe specifically, and quite a few of my others, I like the full deep oil. Now, I do not have an air fryer, but I was talking to one of my friends who works at Hamilton Beach about their air fryer and if this recipe would work, and they said it would. So I haven't tried it. I can't make any promises, but they said because this is breading and not a batter, that this should air fry just fine. So I have been meaning to get an air fryer to try out. I just have not yet. So if any of you have an air fryer and you give this a try, let me know what you think and like what the timing of it was, like that you needed to do. You love them. You want to make the pizza kind. Yes, Laura, I definitely think that that needs to happen for sure. You're Washington State, Virginia. Have you ever done baked mac and cheese in the oven? Like I said, I like my mac and cheese straight out of the pot. One, because I just finished making it and I want to eat it right away. And I like my sauce creamier and I don't like my pasta dry. So personal preference. Did you ever put bacon on top after you're done? If you want bacon as part of these bites, I would put them in the cheese mixture, in the cheese and mac and cheese, in the cheese and macaroni mixture before you freeze it. That would be amazing. Hello, it's your first time seeing you live. Hello, Lisa, it's nice to see you. Thanks for watching. It looks so good, it makes you hungry. Yes, I'm lucky I'm on this side of it and I get to eat next. Michelle, you like my hair today? Thanks. I've actually been trying to do it less just to keep it healthy as I'm growing it out. And so, I don't know. I don't love it, but thank you. I appreciate that very much. You love salt. Nancy, woo, woman after my own heart. You 100% agree on the taste. How cheese you use? Do you use pepper jack cheese? You can totally use pepper jack cheese, Robert. That would taste amazing. Canby, Oregon. Barbara, that's where I graduated from high school. That's so trippy. Go Cougars. Chicken taco. Okay, I think I am all cut up over here. Dang it, your tongue's ruined for dinner. Jennifer, it's okay that I burnt my tongue a little bit. I can still taste cheese. Can you make ahead of time and reheat in the oven? If you want to make these ahead of time, one, these are already, you make the mac and cheese ahead of time and then you want to freeze them for about 4 to 8 hours or longer. I froze this batch probably about a week and a half ago. And then today, cut it up, egged it, breaded it, and did that. You can also get to the stage that you have cut them up. You can dip them in the egg, dip them in the breadcrumbs, and then freeze them. Keep them frozen from that point. So like today, I'm probably gonna fry about 1/3 of this batch, and then but I'm gonna make the rest all up and freeze them on a tray, and then later I can just go fry those. But I'm not gonna freeze them after frying them. I'm always gonna freeze them at that stage and then fry them fresh, because I like that fresh crispiness. When I was in Japan, one of the things that they taught me was that, because they make a lot of fried foods, and they were saying when something is fried, the next day, if you want to re-crisp it up, dip it in some water and then throw it in the fryer, and that water and that oil react together and you crisp it back up without overcooking it, like shrimp and chicken and stuff like that. It always made me a little too nervous to try, so I didn't try it. But again, I was talking to that same rep from the air fryers, and they were saying that you can take already fried food that's like been in your refrigerator and put it in the air fryer, and the air fryer will crisp it back up again and reheat it. So again, I haven't tried that because I don't have one yet, but I have heard good things about that. But just frying it and then reheating it later isn't going to be as good of a result as freezing it with the breadcrumbs on it but then frying it fresh, in my opinion. So that's what I would suggest. Let's see if I'm missing anything else. Yeah, I wanted the keto diet for a second. No. My brother-in-law did that, and I was making Thanksgiving dinner, and I was like, he's gonna ruin Thanksgiving by not being able to eat anything, and I'm not making anything special for him. But he went off it for Thanksgiving, thankfully. Pasta rolled in broccoli and chicken for dinner. I do like pasta and broccoli and chicken, so that sounds amazing, Katie. Hello. Okay, I think I am all cut up on comments on Facebook And YouTube, maybe make sure. What happens if you froze the fried food? If you fry it completely and then freeze it, I still don't know how you would reheat it in crispy enough the second time around. I would rather, like I said, just freeze it at that stage where it's breaded, so that I've already done the work of making it, freezing it, cutting it, egging it, breading it, then refreezing it again, and all I would have to do is get the fryer out and fry it fresh. So that, but I like fresh food, right? I'm not a huge leftover person. I like making the right amount and enjoying it fresh and then making it fresh again another day. So very few things I'm willing to reheat. So personal preference there. Lori, it's your first time watching. Glad you caught it. You want to watch from now on? Awesome. I am live every Tuesday at 4:30 Mountain Time. So 5:30 Central, 6:30 Eastern. I have not picked what I'm going to make next week. I kind of got behind in all my plannings. Would you guys like to see me make like Choco Tacos or some more pops, like something summery? Do you want to stick with something more springy? Just let me know in the comments anything that you want to see more of live, and I will get that scheduled. So I will see you next Tuesday. I have a new schedule with the ex-husband, and the kids will be here next Tuesday. So I'm sure baby boy will be joining us and being hilarious. So it will probably be a slightly longer video because he'll be helping. But yeah, I'm live every Tuesday. Thank you guys again for watching. Can you make it ahead of time and reheat it in the oven? You could try that. I'm sure there's a trick to making that work. Like if you wanted to make a bunch of these for like a party, honestly, they're gonna stay crispy and warm for a while. Like if I wanted to serve these tonight for a party, I'd make them all now. I'd put them in the fridge on a tray, and then yes, I would crisp them back up in the oven right before the party. I'd probably, I'll have to think about that. I would probably like spray them with a little bit of water as they went in the oven, just to keep some moisture in there so they didn't overly dry out while they were crisping back up. I'll have to think about that. But yeah, honestly, these are gonna be okay sitting out and ready for a party for a while. So what I would probably honestly do is I would make them about half an hour before the party and then just leave them in the oven on like warm and then refill the plate from there. That's honestly what I would do. Hopes that helps. All right, I don't see any other questions. So popsicles, Lori, that is a great idea. I've not made popsicles around. My kids love popsicles. And it's a summer food and it's getting warm here. So my kids have school for 2 more weeks, and then my oldest turns 18 and graduates from high school. And this year is so weird. But yeah, no, that's a great suggestion. Thank you so much. So again, thank you for watching. Fried mac and cheese bites. The rest, if you are on Facebook, the recipe is in the link up at the top of the video. If you are on YouTube, if you just click the show more in the description box, the full recipe is down there. Or of course, if you want a printable version, it's also on my site, ashleemarie.com/fried mac and cheese bites. And yeah, follow me on social media. If you make these, don't forget to tag me on social media, Ashlee Marie Cakes, so that I can feature you on my Instagram stories when you make them. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you next Tuesday. And have a great night. I'm about to gain 10 pounds, so that's what I'm doing. Thanks for watching.